In this one, we're going to be taking a look at how to use TypeScript in a React Native project. So all that TypeScript does is if we have any JavaScript code, it enables us to add types to it, and those types can help us to be able to catch some obvious logical errors that we might be introducing in our code. So right here, I have a simple JavaScript function, and all it does is it adds the number a and b. So it takes in the number a and b and then returns the sum of those. But what happens when we call this function and we pass it a and b as strings? It's going to go ahead and return ab, but that breaks down our logic. This is not what we would want to do. So what TypeScript allows us to do, it enables us to be able to explicitly specify the types for these parameters here. So we can be able to specify that a should be a number and b should be a number. So if we ever pass in anything else that's not a number, it's going to go ahead and complain in our editor as we write the code. And that way we can be able to notice that we probably might be doing something wrong, and then we can maybe refactor it and write it better. So for functions, we can be able to return a return type, and this goes ahead to actually enforce that we return a value that matches the return type. So most importantly, in React and React Native projects, TypeScript is used mostly to replace what you would be doing with the prop types module. So this is the prop types module. It's pretty popular. This is so high. So it kind of makes sense to just switch to using TypeScript, because you get benefits of typing your props, and at the same time you can be able to type other things like functions, set variables, and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and see how we can actually set up TypeScript on a React Native project. So I just have a React Native CLI project here, and this is the app that I've actually built out. So what it does is it shows you a list of users, and then you can click on one of these users and it opens the detail page with that user. So once we set up TypeScript, I'm going to be showing you how you can type almost anything you're seeing on the screen. And also we're going to be taking a look at how to use TypeScript with React navigation, so we can get typings for all the functions and variables that come with React navigation. So let's go ahead and see how we can set this thing up. So what we want to do is we want to go to the React Native website. Usually there's documentation for almost everything. So we already have a project that exists. So we want to copy this command here, and we want to go to our terminal. So I'm going to get a new terminal here, and I'm going to install this here. Then we need to create a tsconfig file. So the tsconfig basically has different settings that are used by the TypeScript compiler. And the way this works is whenever we write TypeScript code, it needs a way to be compiled into JavaScript code. And that is done through a TypeScript compiler that gets installed when we install TypeScript. So these are the settings that the compiler uses to be able to know how to handle different things in our project. So we're going to copy this and create a tsconfig.json file. And then we're going to bring in these settings here. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is we're going to create a jest.config.js, and this enables our tests to work even when we are writing TypeScript. So we're going to copy this code here and make sure we add it inside here. So once we are done with this, we are pretty much done with the config. So the next thing we have to do is to start refactoring our project files from using the JS extension to using the TS extension. Now we are going to start with the app.js file. So we're going to rename this to app.tsx. You probably noticed that I changed this to be app.tsx and not ts, and that's because in here it has some JSX. So whenever you have a file that has JSX inside, you want to name that .tsx. When you have a file that has pure TypeScript, then you can be able to name that as .ts. So I'm going to change the example file to be .ts, and right away you can see that TypeScript is already looking at this function and it's like, hey, what are you doing here? I don't understand what this parameter is. So what we need to do is actually go ahead and tell it. So we can tell that, hey, this should be a number. Then let's tell it that, hey, this should also be a number. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove this function here. So the reason why it's giving us this one here is because we are not exporting a file. We are not exporting anything. I'm just going to go ahead and add an export. So export default, get some. And that's going to go ahead and dismiss the error. But notice when we try to call this function and we pass it a as the first argument, notice that TypeScript says that, hey, a string is not assignable to a number. So here we must pass a number, and we can easily tell where we have an issue because it's just going to flag that as an error. So let's also change this to maybe this. And now you can see the beauty. We can't make those simple mistakes. And this is just a simple example of working with numbers. Think about when you're working with objects and arrays, right? So this was just for the demo. I'm just going to go ahead and remove it. And our project should still work fine even when it has some JS files. So what I'm going to do now is actually rename every file that I have in the project from .js to .ts or .tsx. And then I'm going to come back and show you the common types you're going to have to use to be able to type things like state, to type things like props. Alright, so if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to sub, and I'll talk to you in the next one.